the choice. You ever catch yourself wondering, what if? What if I made a different choice? Were the choices that I made the right ones? I find myself in that very situation. A long time ago, I was at a crossroad. Two women I loved deeply. Two women who couldn't be more different. I went right, but I don't know. It started in '99 when I met Kesha. I was pulling into the parking lot of the Slauson Swap Meet on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Now, for those of y'all outside the Los Angeles area, a swap meet is just an indoor flea market. Anyway, me and my boy Teddy were riding through the parking lot, politicking with friends from the neighborhood, trying to see and be seen. And that's when I saw her. She kinda had that tomboyish look to her. You know the type, no makeup, she just let her honey brown skin stand on its own. Nails looked like she done them herself. Her hair was in a ponytail, she had on tight jeans, a t-shirt, and shell-top Adidas. But there was one thing that was incredibly sexy about her, and it's the reason why she caught my attention: the sexy way she walked. Damn, she was toting a couple of bags, talking to another girl next to her. I leaned over to Teddy and said, I got to holla at that little tenderoni. Do me a favor, keep her friend busy for me. Teddy looked at her friend, who reminded me of an old tube of biscuits, the kind that when you pulled back the wrapper, you have to use a spoon to push against the seam and tube would pop open like a jack in the box and scare the shit out of you. That is what her thick body type that was stuffed in her outfit reminded me of. Teddy was like, you owe me, nigga. I pulled my '64 Chevy Impala close to the two ladies and blew my horn as I leaned out the window trying to get their attention. They both stood there with their hands on their hips and an expression on their faces that said, you gotta get out that car and come over here if you want us to talk to you. And I was willing to oblige. I quickly parked the car, got out, and ran over. As I approached, I made eye contact with her. She had these beautiful hazel eyes that sparkled like diamonds in the California sun. Licking my lips, my eyes scan her from head to toe as I asked, where you heading, beautiful? She smiled, but her teeth were far from being straight. She had a crooked smile like the one J. Cole rapped about. She covered her smile with her free right hand, like Celie in the movie Color Purple, and replied, going home. I like your smile, you don't have to hide it, I said as we both looked deep into each other's eyes. And without saying a word, her eyes invited me into her world and wanted to know everything about me. Her hand slowly started to fall, and as it did, I saw that captivating crooked smile again. I smiled back at her and broke in the silence when I asked, so where's home at? I live over by Harvard Park. Me too. I grew up on 60th and Normandy, went to Crenshaw High, class of '95. With a surprised look on her face, she replied, class of '92. Tell me something, was Mrs. Hackleback still running the attendance office when you graduated? What you know about Mrs. Hackleback, I said with an even bigger grin. I know if you late for school, all you had to do was bring her a Snickers bar and she'll give you a pass for class, Kesha said as she laughed. I thought that was just my hookup. She put her hands on her hips and posed playfully as she said, boy, she weighed about 300 pounds. I think she was doing that before both of us came along. All I could do was laugh. Then I asked, what's your name? Kesha Stansfield, she said, batting her eyes at me. Nice to meet you. My name is Adrian West, I said as I looked over and saw Teddy with his arms folded staring back at me, and his eyes were saying, let's go. I turned my attention back to Kesha, who had pulled out a pen, grabbed my hand, and wrote her number on the back of it, and whoop-de-whoop, just like that, it was on. Most of the time, a new girl gives me the digits, I'll wait a day or two to call, trying to be cool. But with Kesha, I called as soon as I got home. We spent hours and hours on the phone talking about any and everything. I could have a deep conversation where we talked about God and the origin of the universe, or the black struggle, police brutality, and growing up in a gang-infested neighborhood. But we also could be silly and find humor in the most unique ways. We both loved to play spades and go to the arcades, and it was so easy and fun spending time with her. We were both comfortable in our own skin around each other, being our true, authentic selves. Learning and discovering Kesha was like reading a really good book that you can't put down. I kept wanting more. So every free evening we were together. Sometimes we would meet at the park and just stroll while holding hands and looking at the stars and sharing our first kiss. Then we went to the Santa Monica Pier with our blankets and watched the movie Coming to America on the lawn under the stars. We both loved to skate, so we went to Venice Beach, and after we finished skating, we'd go to Jenny's to get our favorite ice cream, butter pecan, and we just sit and talk while we watched the sunset. Honestly, I had dated and had sex before, but this was my first experience being in love. A couple of months passed by, and her cousin Deborah had invited us over to kick it one Saturday night. Deborah was the girl that Teddy talked to when we first met, so he was invited too. So me and Teddy came to the spot with some Cisco coolers and a bottle of silver satin right after sunset. When Kesha saw the liquor, she pulled me to the side. "I appreciate you bringing something to drink, but I can't partake," she said with a somber expression. "Oh, did I get the wrong kind?" "No, it's not that I can't drink it because I have sickle cell. I wanted to tell you before, but I was afraid to," she said, looking down at the floor. "Why?" I asked, leaning down so that I could make eye contact. "I didn't want to scare you away." I pulled her into a hug and gave her a kiss as I said, "I ain't going nowhere." You see, that was the thing about Kesha. She had been through so much shit. An absent father, an abusive mother, a crippling, a disease, and after all that she was still a delicate flower looking to be nurtured. And the more delicate and vulnerable she was, the more I wanted to be that man to rescue and take care of her. We played spades and the rest of us drank the liquor. And around midnight, Kesha grabbed my hand and led me into one of the rooms. This was the first time we'd been in a bedroom together since we both still lived at home with our folks. The moment the door closed, we were on each other, kissing, caressing, stripping, and exploring each other's body while H-Town's Knockin' the Boots was playing on the radio. And as the moment of truth arrived, all our clothes were on the floor. We are under the sheets and she's on top of me, our bodies inseparable, thighs to thighs, chest to chest, our lips locked in a passionate kiss. I'm ready to slide inside, and then a fucking knock at the door. "Hey, Adrian, I'm ready to roll," Teddy said, beating on the bedroom door. Somehow, I forgot that Teddy fucks like a jackrabbit. This nigga took Deborah in the room, got undressed, had sex with her, washed his dick out in the sink, got dressed all in under 10 minutes. Unbelievable. So I didn't get to seal the deal that night. Now you're probably thinking, what does it matter? All this will make sense to you when I finish telling you the story. So a week later, I get a call from Kesha. She's on the other end crying. Now let me back up for a minute. Right before me and Kesha met, she had just broke up with this dude, Ron. Her and Ron had been seeing each other for a year and they broke up because she caught him cheating. Anyway, when she called, turns out Ron was shot in the temple that night. It didn't kill him, but it did blind him. And Kesha, she was stricken with grief and was by this dude's side every night. A couple of weeks went by without me seeing or talking to her. And when she did finally call, that's when she hit me with it. She was quitting me to go back with him. She went on and on about how much he needed her. And I was like, what about me? And she said the phrase that have crushed the souls of many men, "We can be friends." I was put into the friend zone before there was such a thing. I think that screwed me up for years. But I stayed friends with her for some reason. I stayed friends as she moved in with this nigga and helped him put his life together. I stayed friends with her when, despite being blind, this nigga could still find pussy like Ray Charles. I stayed friends with her as she left him. I even helped her move. I stayed friends with her as she laid in a hospital bed once a month as she was stricken with a sickle cell crisis. A funny thing happened one day. It may have been a year and a half since we broke up. I was chilling at home. I had my own apartment by this time. I had just bought R. Kelly's TP2, and the greatest sex was jamming while I was straightening up my place. Then I got a knock at the door. It was Kesha. She didn't say nothing. She just walked in and started kissing me. She pushed me against the wall and peppered me with passionate kisses all over. I didn't have time to think or process what was going on. I just rolled with it. It was like my body was on autopilot. Next thing I knew, we were naked from the waist down on top of my bed. She slid me in all natural. It was my first time experiencing sex without a condom, and ooh-wee. She held me tight like she was never going to let me go. Cradling my head, she grinded me until I gave it up. She collapsed on top of me. And I can remember laying there in this euphoric state wondering this must be what it feels like when an addict gets high for the first time. Because that shit was incredible. That next morning she got dressed, gave me another kiss, and left. Telling you I was confused is an understatement, but everything about Kesha was kind of an enigma. However, by this time I had hardened emotionally. I stopped chasing Kesha and every other woman. I figure if she wanted to talk about what happened, she would call me. Around this time is when I met Tissa. I went to the Century Club back when it was poppin', and there she was by herself at the bar, sipping on a drink while grooving to the beat. Now, Tissa was the antithesis of Kesha. Her makeup accentuated her chocolate skin tone. She had on this fly dress that had a slit that gave you a peek at her creamy thighs. She was rocking some bad spaghetti-strapped stilettos that had the toes with the French pedicure on display. Hair was laid. You couldn't tell her shit. I slipped through the crowd and posted up right next to her and said, "Why don't you show me some of those moves on the dance floor?" She turned and looked me up and down. Now she wasn't the only one that could dress. I had on my Guess jeans, white dress shirt with a black leather vest, and sporting a fedora hat. I'm looking like Tupac in the Two of America's Most Wanted video, and smelling like gray flannel. As her eyes finally found mine, she said, "Come on." So we out on the floor dancing, trying to talk over the music. We exchanged names and numbers, and we started seeing each other. Tissa was a very nice, super sweet person. She was cultured and introduced me to things I never experienced, expanded my horizons, like travel. She talked me into going into the mountains and skiing, or driving up to Napa Valley and doing wine tasting or visiting the Grand Canyon. Tissa pulled me out my comfort zone and had me trying new foods, expanding my musical taste, embracing new cultures. And Tissa had poured into me like I had never known. It was like she craved me. She could not keep her hands off me, kissed me all the time. It didn't matter if we were standing in line at a gas station or eating dinner. She wanted to feel me, touch me, taste me. I never met a more passionate person, and I loved every minute of it. Tissa was also a very family-oriented person. She had deep attachments, especially to her two small kids, which she never let me meet them in the beginning. I guess I had to prove I was worthy before she would make those introductions, so we would always hook up late at night or on the weekend. I can remember the night I fell in love like it happened yesterday. Tissa showed up at my door late one night like Robin Givens in Boomerang, wearing nothing but a bra, panties, heels, and an overcoat. My dick was so hard I damn near passed out because there was no blood left in my brain. Oh, it was on that night. This was not making love with scented candles, oils, and passionate kisses. Fuck all that. She got dick down that night. And guess what? I met those kids that weekend, and we were talking about moving in together. A few months later, we got engaged and were looking for a new place. By this time, me and Kesha was still cool, but we weren't talking like that anymore. Months might go by without me hearing from her. I was so into Tissa and my career at this point, I didn't have time for anything else. Then I got the call. Kesha asked me to meet her at her place. She wanted to talk. When I got to her place, she looked the same. She had that same crooked smile that I loved. She greeted me with a hug and invited me to sit down. Wringing her hands, she took a deep breath before laying it on me. "Adrian, I have always loved you, and I always will. The biggest mistake I ever made in my life was leaving you to get back with Ron, and I'm sorry for that," she admitted as she grabbed my hand. A tear started to trickle down her cheek. "You're such a good guy. You're smart, funny, and caring and loyal, and you have so much potential. For you, the sky is the limit. Me, I always knew that my sickle cell was going to limit me, and it's gotten worse over the years. I remember I got sick one time and you dropped everything to be with me in the hospital. You even lost your job because of that." I sat back and looked up. Damn, I forgot all about that. "I never wanted to be a burden. I always wanted what was best for you. And I thought that was being your friend. I had to find out what I was missing that one time, though," Tissa joked as we shared a laugh. She placed a hand on my cheek and said, "And it was wonderful. Look, I know that the timing couldn't be worse, but I want us to be together. I want to spend what life I have left with you." I was speechless. I told her I have to think about it, and I left. You know, nobody could convince me that if we had made love that night in her cousin's house and sealed our bond, that she would have never left. And I agonized over that decision. Kesha's spirit sparked the masculine side of me and made me want to take care of her, while Tissa stroked my ego and made me feel special. In the end, I chose Tissa and we got married. Kesha and I's relationship ended. We never spoke after I made my choice. Me and Tissa had some good years together until it all fell apart. And as I was going through my divorce, Teddy called me and told me that Kesha had passed. I can't think about it now without crying. I should have been there holding her hand at the end, showering her with love, but I made my choice. I just don't know if it was the right one. Was it? The end. Thanks for watching. If you like the content, please like, subscribe.